Let me tell you something real today. Not something sweet, not something soft, something true. When a man walks away, when he stops choosing you, arguing with him won't bring him back. Explaining your pain won't wake him up. Chasing him won't make him value you. And begging only teaches him that he can leave and still keep access to you. See, the strongest message you can send to a man is silence backed by growth. When you erase him from your daily life, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect, something powerful happens. You stop reminding him of your presence. You stop filling the gaps he left behind. You stop being convenient. And suddenly, he feels the weight of your absence. Men don't feel lost when you're still available. They feel loss when your energy disappears. When you stop checking his social media, stop responding immediately, stop asking questions you already know the answers to. He starts asking them instead. He starts wondering why you're no longer reacting, why you're no longer emotional, why you're no longer there. Let me tell you something most people don't want to hear, but they need to. When someone walks out of your life, when a man decides he no longer wants to show up the way he once did, the worst thing you can do is try to convince him to stay. Explaining your worth to someone who already saw it and still chose to walk away only teaching them one thing, that you are willing to shrink yourself just to keep them comfortable. And comfort is dangerous. Comfort makes people careless. Comfort makes people forget what they're holding. You see, when you keep calling, texting, checking in, asking for clarity, asking for closure, asking why you are still present in his life, you are still filling emotional space, you are still easy to access. And a man does not miss what he can still touch. He does not regret what is still available. He does not value what hasn't left. The moment you decide to step back, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in self-respect, everything begins to change. When you stop reacting, when you stop chasing conversations that go nowhere, when you stop offering love where there's no effort returned, you remove the safety net he didn't even realize he was standing on. That's when reality hits him. Absence is loud. Silence forces reflection. When you erase yourself from his routine, he starts noticing the gaps, the good morning messages that no longer come, the support that is suddenly missing, the warmth he assumed would always be there, and now it's not. That's when the mind starts replaying memories. That's when regret begins to whisper. Most men don't feel loss immediately. They feel relief first. Relief that they don't have to explain themselves. Relief that they don't have to be consistent. Relief that they don't have to try. But relief doesn't last. Relief fades when life gets quiet, when nobody is cheering for them, when nobody is checking on them, when nobody is standing in their corner the way you used to. And while he's slowly realizing what he lost, you're doing something far more important. You're reclaiming yourself. You're redirecting your energy back into your life. You're healing your peace. You stop centering your day around someone who couldn't center you in theirs. You begin to glow differently, not loudly, not for attention, but because peace looks good on you. That glow is what shakes him, not your tears, not your explanations, not your anger, your calm, your strength, your ability to move forward without announcing it. When he sees or hears that you're doing well, that you're unbothered, that you're no longer waiting, it triggers something deep, because now he understands that he is no longer the prize. You are. And here's the truth that hurts the ego the most. A man regrets losing a woman when he realizes she didn't need him to survive. She wanted him, yes. She loved him, yes. But she didn't break without him. That realization hits harder than any argument ever could. This isn't about manipulation. This isn't about playing games. This is about protecting your dignity. When you erase someone from your emotional world, you're not doing it to punish them. You're doing it to save yourself. And if he comes back, it won't be because you begged. It will be because he finally saw your value once access was gone. And if he doesn't come back, then understand this. You didn't lose him. You released someone who couldn't meet you where you stood. And that right there is not a loss. That's growth. When it comes to relationships, one of the hardest lessons a woman can learn is that being constantly available, being present at every call or message, and showing up at every whim of a man who doesn't value you is not love. It's training him to take you for granted. A lot of women make the mistake of thinking that persistence equals power, that chasing someone will somehow make them realize what they've lost. But the truth is, chasing never teaches respect. Chasing only teaches that your time, your heart, and your energy are negotiable. And the moment a man learns that, he loses respect. He doesn't miss you. He doesn't regret leaving. He doesn't feel the absence because to him, you are still there. Still reachable, still on call. The secret lies in availability or, more importantly, the lack of it. When a man feels that your energy, your attention, and your presence are no longer easy to access, that's when he begins to notice. That's when he begins to feel the weight of the absence he once ignored. Human nature is simple. We miss what we cannot have. And for too long, many women have allowed men to have them on demand, to take from them without giving in return, to be a constant in a life that was never theirs to hold completely. The power shifts the moment you stop offering that convenience. Stepping back doesn't mean acting out of spite or revenge. It doesn't mean cutting off all humanity or becoming cold and distant in a way that feels unnatural. It means reclaiming your time, your focus, and your energy. It means living your life as if he never existed, because in the grand scheme of things, your life is too valuable to be spent centered around someone who doesn't see your worth. You focus on your work, your goals, your health, your friendships, your joy, your growth. And with every moment you reclaim, he becomes less a part of your daily reality and more a memory of what he chose to walk away from. This absence triggers something powerful in a man. At first, he may not notice. At first, he may feel relief, thinking life is easier without responsibility or expectation. But absence is patient. It waits. It grows louder in the silence you create. The small gaps you leave, your laughter missing from group calls, your support absent in moments. He expected it. Your presence no longer a given, begin to echo in ways that cannot be ignored. He starts to remember the little things he overlooked. The patience you showed when he was difficult, the care you poured into moments he barely noticed, the love he took for granted, and slowly, inevitably, regret begins to seep in. What makes this approach so effective is that it doesn't rely on drama or manipulation. You're not playing games. You're simply choosing self-respect over chaos. You're refusing to let your emotional availability be a bargaining chip for someone who failed to value it. And here's the truth. The more authentic, calm, and confident your life becomes, the more he notices the void he left behind. It's not about making him chase. It's about showing that your life continues with or without him. And that's the kind of realization that hits harder than any confrontation ever could. The irony is that when you step back, you often gain more than just respect, you gain freedom. You stop waiting for validation. You stop measuring your worth by someone else's decisions. You stop allowing another person's choices to dictate your happiness. And in that freedom, you grow, you shine, you thrive. And the energy you exude when you move on naturally commands attention. If he truly cared, he starts remembering. He starts missing. He starts wondering why you're no longer the convenient constant you once were. This isn't about punishing him. It's about preserving your dignity. It's about letting him see what he lost without having to say a word. And that is the most powerful form of communication there is. Absence paired with growth. It's quiet. It's subtle, but it speaks volumes. And when he finally realizes it, The regret is not a surprise. It's a consequence of his own choices. And the best kind of consequence is one that comes without you having to force it. Let's talk about the way men perceive loss, because most women completely misunderstand it. Men don't feel the weight of losing someone while that person is still within easy reach. They don't feel regret when you're still available, still answering, still caring in ways that they don't reciprocate. They only feel the emptiness when it's undeniable, when the absence can't be ignored, when the energy they once had access to is no longer there. That's the truth most women resist hearing, but it's the truth nonetheless. You cannot make a man regret by chasing him, explaining yourself, or pleading for attention. None of that creates value. All it does is reinforce that you can be taken for granted. The power comes when you step away, not out of anger, not as revenge, but out of self-respect. When you remove yourself from the day-to-day narrative of his life, something begins to shift. You stop being his safety net, and he starts realizing that the comfort he relied on is gone. There's no more immediate reaction when he reaches out. There's no more instant validation when he wants attention. There's no more emotional convenience to keep him comfortable. And that's when the mirror hits him. He starts to see himself as he truly is, not the man you allowed him to pretend to be. He starts to recognize that the love, the loyalty, the presence he assumed was infinite is suddenly finite, not because you are punishing him, but because you are prioritizing yourself. This process is not subtle, yet it is quiet. It doesn't require confrontation or dramatic gestures. It doesn't require posts on social media, passive-aggressive comments, or public displays of independence. Real power is silent. Real power is calm. Real power is choosing your life over someone who consistently chose otherwise. It's about showing without words that your value cannot be negotiated or diminished, that your love is not a commodity for someone who doesn't see your worth. And that calm, quiet confidence, it shakes him more than anger ever could. It forces reflection, it forces recognition, and eventually it forces regret. When he starts to realize the gap you left, the absence becomes louder than any argument. The messages he used to take for granted no longer arrive. The support he assumed would always be there suddenly disappears. The little touches, the patience, the care, the effort he ignored, he starts remembering all of it. And those memories are amplified by the stark contrast between your past presence and your current absence. He begins to replay moments in his mind, wondering how he allowed someone so giving, so consistent, so devoted to slip through his fingers. That's when regret creeps in, not because you forced it, but because your life went on without waiting for his validation. Your peace, your growth, your happiness became independent of his choices. This is why women are often told to step back, because it works. It forces him to recognize that you were never just another option, that your heart was never disposable, and that what he took for granted cannot be replaced. And while he's grappling with that, you are thriving. You are rediscovering your priorities, focusing on your goals, nurturing your passions, and building a life that no one can undermine. You are creating an energy around yourself that commands attention not through force, not through manipulation, but simply through the fact that your light shines without needing anyone to feed it. It's important to understand that this approach is not about playing games or tricking anyone. It's about reclaiming yourself. It's about choosing dignity over drama. And it's about letting someone see what they lost because you stepped into your own power. If he comes back, it is because he recognizes the truth that he overlooked before. And if he doesn't, it's because you made room for someone who will never take your value for granted. Either way, the lesson is clear. The most effective way to make a man regret losing you is to live fully, fiercely, and unapologetically without him. And that is a power no words can ever match. Let's be honest, one of the hardest things for a woman to accept is that love alone doesn't guarantee respect. You can pour your heart into someone, show up every day, support them through their struggles, and still be undervalued, overlooked, or taken for granted. It's painful, it's confusing, and it's infuriating, but the key is realizing that the solution is never in clinging tighter. Clinging, chasing, or over-explaining only convinces him that your love is endless, that your patience has no limit, and that your heart will always be there to absorb his choices. And when a man senses that, he stops seeing your value. He stops feeling your absence. He doesn't realize what he lost because he's still comfortable in the presence you continue to offer. The trick to making him regret walking away is learning when to step back and reclaim yourself. And that requires a strength many women underestimate. When you remove yourself from his daily life, not out of spite, but out of self-respect, everything begins to shift. You stop being a constant, a safety net, a predictable source of energy and attention. You stop responding immediately. You stop anticipating his needs. You stop filling emotional gaps that he left. And in that absence, a powerful truth begins to emerge. People only value what they can't have. The very moments you stop being available, the little silences, the spaces you no longer fill begin to echo louder than any argument or confrontation ever could. He begins to notice that the warmth he relied on, the care he assumed would always be there, and the love he once ignored are no longer at his disposal. And when that realization strikes, regret creeps in quietly but relentlessly. One of the most important things to understand is that this is not about manipulation or game. It's not about passive-aggressive behavior or trying to make him jealous. True power lies in detachment coupled with growth. When you focus on yourself, your goals, your passions, your health, your happiness, he begins to see you not as someone who exists to serve his comfort, but as a complete, independent individual. That realization hits harder than any confrontation or plea ever could. He starts remembering the moments he took for granted, the laughter you shared, patience you showed, the effort you invested, the unwavering support you offered. And those memories, amplified by the contrast of your absence, trigger an awareness of what he lost. This process works because absence is not empty, it is meaningful. It communicates without words that you will no longer be treated as an option, that your presence is not negotiable, and that your energy is reserved for those who respect it. And while he may initially feel relief or even indifference, that fades quickly when he realizes that the life he once had access to is no longer available. The more authentic, calm, and confident your life becomes, the more he is forced to confront his own choices. Regret, in this sense, is not something you created, is the natural consequence of his failure to value you when he had the chance. At the same time, stepping back allows you to reclaim yourself fully. You are no longer waiting for his validation, no longer structuring your days around someone who cannot see your worth. You are free to invest in yourself, to grow, to thrive. And this transformation, this reclaiming of power and dignity is what makes him notice. It is what makes him remember. It is what makes him regret. Because no argument, no explanation, no chase can ever match the power of a woman who has chosen herself over someone who failed to recognize her value. Ultimately, the lesson is simple but profound. The best way to make him regret leaving is to stop being available to the man who never valued you and to start being fully available to yourself. When you shine, when you thrive, when your life moves forward with or without him, you demonstrate the truth he overlooked. And that truth, when finally seen, is more powerful than any words ever spoken. It is a reminder that what he lost cannot easily be replaced, and that your presence, once taken for granted, is now a memory that will linger long after your absence is felt. Let us be real. Too many women spend their energy trying to fix men who have already shown their true colors. They apologize for feelings that shouldn't be questioned, justify behavior that is disrespectful, and make excuses for someone who does to make them a priority. And while all of that might feel like love, it is actually a form of self-erasure. You cannot force someone to appreciate your presence when they have been consistently taking it for granted. A man only realizes your value when he no longer has access to it, when the space you once filled is empty, and when the comfort he assumed would always exist is suddenly gone. That is when regret hits, and it hits hard. But this only works if you understand one thing. Stepping back is not about punishment. It is about self-respect. It's about reclaiming your life, your energy, and your peace. And in that process, forcing him to face the reality of what he lost. Being unavailable is a powerful tool, and it starts with detachment. Detachment doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means prioritizing your emotional well-being above the need to be validated by someone who failed to recognize your worth. It means no longer waiting for late-night calls, no longer responding immediately to messages, no longer bending over backward to fill gaps he left unaddressed. You focus on yourself, your growth, your happiness, your ambitions. And in doing so, you reclaim control over your life. That absence, that quiet refusal to be taken for granted, begins to speak louder than any words ever could. He notices the gap you leave, and it slowly gnaws at him. The very presence he ignored becomes a memory that he cannot shake. The power of erasure lies in consistency. It is not a one-time act or a moment of anger. It is sustained, deliberate, and grounded in self-respect. You don't reach out. You don't explain your feelings. You don't justify your absence. You simply exist on your own terms, moving forward with dignity, grace, and purpose. And as he begins to realize that you are no longer an option, that your energy is no longer available to be taken for granted, regret begins to form. It's quiet, at first a flicker of awareness, a pang of longing, but over time it grows. He remembers the patience you showed, the loyalty you offered, the love he never reciprocated, and the harder he tries to understand why you are no longer there, the more he feels the weight of the loss he created. This process works because it shifts the focus from him back to you. For too long, your attention, time, and emotional labor may have been spent in pursuit of someone who could not meet you where you stood. But stepping away puts that energy back into your own life. You invest in your career, your passions, your relationships, and most importantly, in yourself. The transformation is visible not in dramatic gestures, but in the subtle confidence you radiate, in the calm, contented way you carry yourself, in the unmistakable glow of someone who is whole and thriving independently. That glow is what forces him to take notice. That glow is what makes him question his choices. That glow is what makes him regret losing you. And here's the crucial truth. Regret does not come from anger or manipulation. It comes from absence combined with growth. When he sees that you are no longer waiting, no longer dependent on his attention, and no longer available on demand, he is confronted with the reality that the woman he took for granted has moved on. That realization is painful because it is absolute. It is not something he can negotiate or control. It is simply the natural consequence of his own choices. And if he ever comes back, it should not be because you allowed it. It should be because he genuinely recognizes the value he lost. And if he doesn't, you have already won because you have chosen yourself over someone who failed to appreciate your worth. You have created space for a life and a love that truly reflects your value. Let's talk about what really happens when a man starts to feel the absence of a woman he once took for granted. Most women make the mistake of thinking that confrontation, tears, or explanations will make a man regret leaving. But regret doesn't come from drama or desperation. It comes from a shift in presence, a withdrawal of energy that he once assumed was guaranteed. When a man realizes that the woman he ignored, dismissed, or undervalued is no longer available to him, that's when reality hits. And the key to creating that moment is not through manipulation, but through self-respect, independence, and unwavering consistency in stepping into your own life without him. The lesson here is simple. A man only regrets losing what he cannot have. If you remain endlessly available, he will never feel the void you create. The first step is understanding the value of your time and energy. Too often, women pour themselves into men who are emotionally unavailable, thinking that persistence equals power. It does not. In fact, it teaches the exact opposite. By always showing up, by always being accessible, you train a man to believe that your presence is endless, that your attention is guaranteed, and that your heart is negotiable. And once he internalizes that, he no longer feels the weight of loss. He doesn't miss you because in his mind, you are still there always. But the moment you step back, remove yourself from his constant access and stop making your life revolve around him, a shift occurs. He begins to notice the gaps. He begins to feel what he once ignored, and that feeling slowly morphs into regret. Detachment is the second key. Detachment doesn't mean becoming cold, indifferent, or cruel. It means prioritizing yourself. It means no longer measuring your worth by his attention or approval. You stop waiting for him to call, texting less frequently, and refusing to fill emotional gaps he has left unaddressed. You focus on your own growth, your goals, your happiness, and your peace. That focus is magnetic in its own way. It forces him to confront the reality that the woman he assumed would always be there has chosen herself instead. And that choice, that independence, is more powerful than any explanation, argument, or confrontation ever could be. Consistency is critical in this process. This is not a one-time act or a single decision. It is a deliberate, sustained effort to live your life on your terms. You don't explain your absence. You don't justify your choices. You simply exist fully, unapologetically, and with dignity. And as he sees you moving forward without him, he begins to reflect on what he lost. He remembers your patience, your loyalty, the care and love he never reciprocated. And that reflection grows into awareness, which eventually becomes regret. Absence paired with growth is far more effective than any words could ever be. Another important aspect is the internal transformation you undergo during this time. When you reclaim your energy and redirect it toward yourself, you become more than just absent, you become radiant. You are confident, self-assured, and thriving independently. Your life becomes full of purpose, joy, and momentum, and that energy is undeniable. When he observes the transformation, he sees the consequences of his choices mirrored in your success and happiness. He starts questioning his decisions and wondering why he let someone so valuable slip through his fingers. And the best part is you didn't have to beg, plead, or manipulate. Your life simply moved forward. And in doing so, it revealed the truth he ignored. Finally, it is essential to recognize that this process works with or without his return. If he comes back, it should be because he genuinely recognizes the value he lost, not because you made yourself available again. And if he doesn't return, it doesn't matter, because in the act of erasing him from your life emotionally and reclaiming your space, you have already won. You have chosen yourself, preserved your dignity, and created room for people who will truly see and appreciate your worth. In the end, The most powerful way to make a man regret losing you is to stop existing for him entirely and begin existing fully for yourself, letting your life speak louder than any words ever could.